Usually, in the Sefer Torah, it's divided up into Parshas. Inside, not the Parshas that we have in the Chumash. There's no chapters or a later addition from the Christians, but the Parshas in the Sefer Torah. So you have a Samach and you have a Pei. Like the sections are divided up. A Pei means it's a Pesuach, Psucha. It's like a major stop, and a Samach is a minor stop. It's in between minor sections. In Parshas Mikeitz, it's all one long parsha. There's no stops. There's no pei, and there's no samach.
Only parsha like that?
It's the only. I think it's the only parsha like that. Yeah. Maybe Balak. No, Balak. It's got sections, but the whole parsha of Mikeitz, from the beginning to the end. The other ones have maybe minor this samach. In Vayigash, the whole beginning, the whole first half is also one parsha until you get to a samach. But it's only a samach. Why is that? Because there's a one long storyline that HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want to divide up. We have to understand why. The story of Mikeitz, the story of Yosef going down to Mitzrayim, is one long story. How he went down to Mitzrayim. The Torah, we have all the way back from Vayeshev. He had the dreams. Yosef had the dreams, and he told the brothers, and he got on their bad side. They thought he was usurping power. He had visions of grandeur. When he was just a very naive little kid, and he thought he really had a dream. He knew he had a dream. He felt that the dream was true, and he went and told them. But it was a bad idea for him to tell them. And they thought it was visions of grandeur, and he's going to take over. So they wanted to kill him because he was a roidef. He had a din of a roidef. I don't want to go into the whole story there. You look it up in the Meforshim, in the Chumash. But the brothers wanted to kill him. Instead, Reuven saved him and he put him into the boar. And then they said, "We'll sell him." Then they sold him down to Mitzrayim. Poor little kid. He came from riches. Yaakov Avinu was a millionaire. He was a millionaire. He was a
millionaire.
Yeah.
Millionaires, that's a big deal.
Oh no, millionaires. Inflation. He lived in a life of in a family of royalty, and now he's being sold as a slave. He went down to Mitzrayim. He got involved in Potiphar's house, and Ashes Potiphar started up with him, and then he wound up in jail. The whole storyline. 13 years. 13 years he was in jail until finally, with Paro, had the dreams, and he was lifted up in seconds, instantaneously. It was amazing. He comes and he interprets the dreams of Paro. And Paro says, "You're so smart, I'm going to make you the second in command," which is totally... Can you imagine, like, all the CEOs of the company and the experts, and they're trying to figure out a game plan, and the janitor walks in and he says, "Guys, I think you got it wrong, do it this way." And they said, "Wow, we're making you second in command of the company." It'll never happen. Never in a million years will happen. They're going to make the janitor into second command in the company, even if he had the greatest idea. And here is Paro, the ruler of the greatest empire of that era, and he makes Yosef the second in command. What is going on over here? And then the brothers go down to Mitzrayim because there was a famine. There was a terrible famine. The famine was in Egypt, and the famine was in Canaan, Eretz Canaan. It was a terrible famine. They had nothing to eat. And Yaakov says, please go down to Mitzrayim and buy some food. There's food in Mitzrayim. So they go down and they spread themselves out, and each one goes to a different corner, and in the back of their minds they're looking for Yosef, trying to find out what happened to Yosef, and they're going to redeem him. He must be a slave boy somewhere. And all of a sudden they go to the second in command, the viceroy, because he's the one who's handing out. He's in charge. He's in charge of all the sales. He didn't trust anybody with the sales. Yosef didn't trust anybody. He knew who the Egyptians were. He didn't trust anybody. They're going to take Meiser. He knew that all the Egyptians would take Meiser, and he's loyal. He was loyal to his job, and he didn't want anybody filling their pockets from the sales.
No Qatarian money. Nothing.
Yeah, no. Right. So he was in control of everything, and he was selling everything, and he spotted his brothers, and all of a sudden the brothers find themselves that this viceroy is gathering the 10 brothers together. How did he know that they were related? And then he accuses them of being spies. See, you spread yourself out, and I see that you're all together. Now that means you're looking for something. You're spies. No. We're not spies. We're 11 brothers. Oh, 11? I only see 10. Where's the 11th? He's the little kid, the kid brother. Benjamin, he's still down with his father. His father won't let him come to us. No, you bring him over here and then I'll release you. Otherwise, you're all spies. He takes Shimon as a hostage. That's when the hostages started. They take Shimon as a hostage, and and then they go back, and then they have this strange incident. They find the money in their bags, like return, and they go to Yaakov. And they say, well, where's Shimon? Where's Shimon? The head, and they tell him the whole story. They accuse us of being spies, and we had to explain ourselves, and we're one big family, and we're 11 kids. So he says, I want the 11th kid. I want the 11th child. I want Benjamin to come down to Mitzrayim, and I want to see him. Otherwise, you're not getting Shimon back. And Yaakov was beside himself. He was beside himself. Vayomer Yisrael said, Lama harayosim li, why'd you do this evil to me? Why'd you do this evil to me? Lahagid leish ha'od lachem ach. Why'd you have to tell this guy, this viceroy, this goy, that you have another brother? Lama haroisim li. We find in Yeshaya that the Kodesh Baruch Hu had a taina on Yaakov. Lama haroisim li. Why have you done evil to me? Lama toimer Yaakov. Why is Yaakov saying, "V'tedaber Yisrael nistra darkem mi Hashem"? Everything's from Hashem. This is not befitting of Yaakov. Yaakov was the epitome of bitachon. When we at the beginning, when we first meet Yaakov, and he steals the brachas from his brother Esav, and he's got to run for his life because Esav is out to kill him. And everything was stolen from him by Eliphaz. And I mentioned this when I gave my talk in Parshas Vayetze. He's going to get a wife. He has no money. Where's my help going to come from? Me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri miyim Hashem, osei shemayim v'oretz. He understood. Kadosh Baruch Hu made shemayim v'oretz. Yesh me'ayin yavo Ezri. He understood that. If a Kadosh Baruch Hu can create Yesh me'ayin, out of nothing. From nothing, he created the whole universe. He can create a situation where I can get my wife. And he worked for Lavan. He went down to Lavan. And you see how great he was. Lavan tricked him. After 7 years working for Rachel, he gets Leah. Now, if, imagine, the night after your chassan, you find out, he switched. You'd go to your shver and you would let him have it. That's what you would do. You'd give him, 1, 2. What kind of business is this? Right? He complained. Why'd you trick me? Lavan gave him his teretz. We don't marry off the younger daughter before the older daughter. And he accepted it. And he stayed with Leah. And he accepted another 7 years for Rachel. Now he could have given Rachel a 1, 2 also, because he found out that Rachel had given the simonim to the simonim over to Leah, to her sister. He accepted it. This is all min hashemayim. I'm not going to insult somebody. I'm not going to cause this. I'm not going to cause this poor Leah. Leah's stuck. It's her fault that her father, used her as a trick. He stayed with Leah. He understood this is min hashemayim. I'm supposed to marry Leah. I'm supposed to marry Rachel. And he worked honestly for Lavan. And after 14 years, he wanted to go home. And then another 6 years. Another 6 years he worked for Lavan. And Lavan tried to trick him 100 times. And he had full bitachon in the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and he became rich. He had a fight with the Malach, this is a man, we can't imagine how great he was. His name was called Yisroel. It was changed from Yaakov. Yaakov is like the Akev, it's like the bottom. And Yisroel means he rules over Malachim. Yisrael. He rules over divine things. He was the best of the best. His face, the Malachim, at the time when the dream of the ladder, they saw his face. It was the same face that was in the Kisei HaKavod, of the epitome of a human being, Adam Arishon. And now he loses himself, and he says, "Why have you done this evil to me?" He tells his sons, "Why have you done this evil to me?" So the Medrash brings the Taina. Rav Leib b'shem Rav Chama bar Chanina mi'olam lo amar Yaakov Avinu davar shel batola. He never said a davar shel batola, an idle statement. It's very, very mild. It's a very, very mild complaint against him. A davar shel batola. I mean, it sounds like kfira. The Medrash is saying it's not kfira. He didn't lose himself. It's lama nistra, and the Yeshaya says, he says, I don't see what's going on over here, and therefore I'm in pain. Lama nistra darki mi Hashem. Why has my way been concealed by Hashem? He understood it was from Hashem, but why am I seeing concealment? Hester panim. That was the tain on him, that he got upset about seeing Hester panim. Things are going wrong. It doesn't make sense to me. Oh, it doesn't make sense to you. Things went wrong. You did everything right and things went wrong. You had a great plan, but it's backfiring. Now you're in trouble. Kadosh Baruch Hu had a tainid to him. I'm trying to make your son the Melech of Mitzrayim, and you're saying, why have you done this evil to me? Nistra Darkim Hashem. Yes, it's a Hester Panim. But Nistra Darkim Hashem. And that is what we learn out from here. This is all being orchestrated. This is the worst thing that could have ever happened to Yaakov in his mind. And he doesn't see the whole picture. And that's what happens when we see a very narrow vision. We see things in a narrow light. You see only 5 minutes of the movie. You got a whole long movie and you see 5 minutes of the movie with the guy with the gun and he's about to shoot the hero. And you go, ah! That's all you see. You have to look at the whole picture. There had to be a Yerida to Mitzrayim. There was a Gullus. Mitzrayim was already, and they knew about it. They had a Kabbalah from Avram Avinu. There was going to be a Gullus. It didn't say it had to be in Mitzrayim. Had to be a Gullus in Eretz Lo Lahem. They knew they have to go into Gullus. Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted them to go into Gullus, and he wanted them to be separated, to become the greatest nation on earth. If the Yidden had stayed in Canaan, so what would have happened? They would have intermarried with the Canaan. You do Geiris. It's like doing Geiris with Amaleki. The Canaanim were terrible people. Avram Avinu said, and Yitzchak said, you don't marry into Canaan. Even if they do Geiris, even if they convert, you don't marry into Canaan. They have the worst midas of the world. They were decrepit people. So where did Kadosh Baruch Hu want Yisrael to go down to? Wanted them to go down to Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, they're disgusted by the Jews. Look at what in Parshas Vayigash, this week's Parsha. And Yosef invites the brothers. They're going to have lunch with him. And Yosef sat separately because he's the king. And then the brothers sat separately from the Egyptians. Put them on a different table because it was mius. It was disgusting to the Egyptians that these people, they eat sheep. That's our God. They hated. They couldn't stand them. They were disgusted by them. That was the best thing. He put them into a ghetto. He picked, since he was the king, he was able to pick out the best land, Goshen, Ramses and Goshen. It was the best piece of property. And they could live separately from the Egyptians. And because of that, in the 210 years that they were in Egypt, nobody intermarried. That was a mistake. That was a rape. That one person. Huh? No. Shlomo, she said hi, but she didn't. She thought it was her husband came in. The Egyptian. That was a rape. But except for her, except for Shlomis Bas Divri, nobody. There was absolutely no intermarriage. They became the best. It was the best place for them to be. And for some reason, they had to be in Mitzrayim, and they had to go through the torment of the avodah of Mitzrayim. And there's Al Pi Kabbalah that since Mitzrayim is Erves Haaretz, it's the worst place in the world. So therefore, that's where the Sitra Achra, the Sam, Sam, we call it Uncle Sam. So the Sam, the Samach Mem, we don't like mentioning the Samuel, the Sam. So the Yetzer Hara, he's in control of Mitzrayim, and there's something called Nitzoitzis of Neshamas that he captured. Yeah? Neshamas that he captured, the Klippas, yeah. But these are good Klippas, these are Tyra Neshamas. And it said that we cleaned out Mitzrayim of all the Kedusha that was in Mitzrayim. So there was all in the plan. This was all in the plan. And we had to get Yaakov down to Mitzrayim. How do you get Yaakov down to Mitzrayim? How do you get Yaakov down to Mitzrayim? Yaakov had to go down to Mitzrayim because of the whole plan. So you're going to drag him down like a sheep to slaughter, a cow to slaughter, pull him down there. So Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to do it in the best way. He sent his son down there, and he went after his son like a bubala. He was very, very happy. What did Kadosh Baruch Hu do? He didn't want to pull him down there in disgrace, because he had to go down there to Mitzrayim. He brought his son down there in front of him, and he went afterwards. What do you do when you have a cow and you have to shech the cow and the cow is resisting? You bring the calf and you lead the calf in front of the cow, and the cow will go after the calf into the slaughterhouse, wherever it has to go. That's what happened with Yaakov. So all this was orchestrated by the Kodesh Baruch Hu. This is a lesson for us when we see things that it looks like a terrible tragedy. When you see things in a terrible tragedy, whether it's a personal tragedy or a national tragedy, you have to look at the bigger picture.
Rabbi, can I just ask a quick question? If you do this in business, what's happening is you think, oh, I have the best plan, I don't have to improve myself. Really, if I just wait, I'll see that Hashem is actually in charge. Versus, I'm an idiot, I'm a screw up, I'm lazy, I need to improve myself, I need to start working harder. And obviously Hashem's in charge. But I still need to,
I'm not getting involved in how much that
I'm asking not in terms of effect, I'm saying in terms of hashkafa.
Hashkafa is that whatever happens, the best plans, how many people had the best plans and all of a sudden they got a sudden, unforeseen, the turnaround, and how many people invested in the stock market looked like was going up and then boom. The whole investment got wiped out.
Yeah, I'm saying that I should be working instead of watching YouTube videos. Clearly something's wrong with me. Not that Hashem wanted me, but I screwed up that.
For sure, you should not be watching YouTube videos.
Except
You got to be more.
Except for this year.
You have to be working for sure. If you're in business, you have
to listen to the shir, not watch.
No comments.
Not watch the comments. That's what you're doing here. Listen to all the comments from Abdullah.
I do comment. I comment every time.
Okay, you have to. When you're in business, you have to work hard. You have to use your ideas. We had in Parshas Eikev. It says Hashem osalim choyel. So what does it mean? Hashem does for you power. So if you look in the Targum over there, we mentioned this. I said it in my shir. In the Targum and also Targum Yonason, he says he puts an eitzah into your head. Because Baruch Hu will give you, all of a sudden an idea comes into your head, and that's the idea, and it's a winner idea. It's not that you're smart. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put the juke in your head, he put the crazy idea. Somebody would look at you, you're crazy. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put that idea in my head, and it's going to win. So you have to have betachon. Then there's levels of betachon and how much v'shtadlis and betachon. We're not getting involved in that.
Hashem puts an idea inside of your head and you don't use it.
The government building says
to be a go-go man.
Says the three things. It says Esav, Love, and Yosef. And the long win, and that I accept, but I didn't know I'm going to get something else, and he couldn't understand.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Eli, yeah. Yes. The tragedy in life takes place when you judge a situation only in its limited context. Reality, if it's all it is, it's one link in the great chain. And you're going to find in Vayigash that Yosef himself had risen above this. Yosef never complained against the brothers. His brothers sold him. That's a terrible thing, to sell him as a slave by his own brothers. I'll never forgive them. How many times your business partner or nebuch by the siblings, and they, I don't want to, they do you in, and you say, I'm never going to forgive them. And you don't see that by Yosef. Look in Parshas Vayigash, was coming up this week. He just treated them with total brotherly love because he says, this is it's impossible. It's impossible that they would have done this to me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu must have put this idea in their head because he's got a plan to make me king. He realized when he became king, this whole thing was a setup to get him down to Mitzrayim, that now he's now a king, but he had the dreams, and he knows that his brothers and his father, and it says Levana also is going to bow down. Who's Levana? They asked the Kasha, who's Levana? So Yaakov says, what, your mother's going to bow down to you? Your mother's dead. He didn't know that he was going to marry Osnas Bas Dina, and his shviger's going to bow down to him. Right? Dina was the shviger, his mother-in-law. So Osnas was Bas Dina. She's daughter of Dina. No.
No, she's the mother of...
You look in Kargim Yonason. Dina had a child. Dina had a child from Shechem, and they didn't want her in the family, so he gave her an amulet, and sent her down to Mitzrayim. She got adopted by Ashes Potiphar because she couldn't have any kids. She was an adopted child of Ashes Potiphar.
She had the nevuah that was her adopted child.
What?
No.
She's saying no.
And she's Potiphar thought in her mind that maybe she had a vision that she's supposed to marry Yosef.
And it was her daughter, but it was adopted daughter, because adopted daughter is like your daughter. An adopted daughter is like your daughter. Yes. Yes. But Osnas was Bas Dina. That was the mice. It says that whether he recognized, he knew about her when she was when he was in Beis Potiphar, it doesn't say, but it says when he became king, so he was Yosef was beautiful. So all the girls they were hanging over the wall, trying to get a glimpse of him, and they started throwing all sorts of things at him, to get his attention. And she didn't have anything. She was a slave girl. She was treated like nothing. So she had this amulet, this beautiful amulet, and she took it and she threw it at him. It landed in his chariot, and he sees Hebrew letters all of a sudden on a piece of jewelry. He picks it up and he says, "This came from my house." So he did an investigation until he found out who it was. He wasn't going to marry a shiksa. Yosef didn't want to marry a shiksa. It was an isser to marry a shiksa. He was going to try to figure out a way to get out of it. And all of a sudden, he's got his niece. Great. He got married to his niece.
How come he knew that?
Well, he figured it out from the amulet. He got the amulet, so it's from his father's house. And he figured out the whole story from the amulet.
By Shechem Dina, Yaakov wasn't flabbergasted as he was when he was Yosef.
Yes.
Why?
Okay. I can't answer all the questions. Let me.
That's the line.
Rabbi Weinlein exists.
He's going to give you a shir afterwards.
Yeah.
Whatever happens to you is the hand of providence. And it's very hard for us to absorb. All of us, when things happen and things go wrong, many events appear in this life as being terrible, but eventually, hopefully, we're going to see that it wasn't so bad afterwards. After all, why can't we see this? Because we're bound by space and time. We can't see anything out of our small little cubicle of existence. We just have to accept it. We see things happening that are unfolding. We can't imagine that they serve any constructive purposes. But with time and with a little hindsight, then you see whatever happened, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was doing us a tremendous favor. Whenever you're in the midst of your troubles, now, it's very hard for me to tell you to realize this. You're not going to appreciate it. But when it happens, look back on your life, and Be'ez Hashem, you'll be able to say, Now I understand everything. But it takes time. It takes time. There was a Hasidic Rav in Auschwitz. His name was Tzvi Hirsch Meisels. He was the Rebbe of Weizen.
Chicago? Chicago.
I think so.
The Weitzer Rav.
The Weizer Rav.
Weitzer Cheder.
The Weizen Rav.
And his
Yeah.
son, yeah.
The Weizen Rav. He was in Auschwitz. He was a big Talmud Chacham. I just heard Usher Weiss quoting him already. On Sunday night, I heard Usher Weiss, and he quoted him. He's got a sefer Mekachi Hashem. He's got an incident. He was in Auschwitz.
He was in. Rebbe was in Chicago, or it was.
He was in Chicago. Then when he got out of Auschwitz, he's saved somehow or other from Auschwitz, and he went to America, and he went to Chicago. And he wrote shuvas that the shilas that he had in Europe, in Auschwitz. He had all the shilas and
Terrible shilas.
About during the very like Mama Mik. There's also shilas and shuvas mi mamaki. Yeah, I have it. It's all the shuvas from there. That was from the Kovna ghetto. It's terrible shilas. Anyway, so he told stories that when he was in Auschwitz, and an SS officer came over to him and says, "The commandant wants to see you right away." That means only one thing. The commandant was a Nazi. He loved playing games with the Jews, and he had no compunctions. And it was one of his favorite sports to shoot the Jews in the head, especially the rabbiner. If he could get a hold of a rabbiner and play games with him, and then afterwards knock him off, so he knew this is it. He's about to be executed. So he took off his boots. And he said, "If I resist now, so this Nazi is going to take care of me, and then I'll die on the spot. You don't resist the commandant. If I go to the commandant, so I can gain 15 minutes of life. 15 minutes of life. Al pi halacha, if you can gain 15 minutes of life, you gain 15 minutes of life. Every minute of life is worth billions." So he took his boots off, gave them to one person. He took his coat off, he gave it to another person. He gave his food ration to a third person. And he's walking saying Vidui with the SS guard. He comes into the commandant's office. Rabina, something's bothering me. I have a question for you. And you have to answer my question. Now sit down. So he sits down. You guys believe in God. And God is permitting us Nazis to do terrible things to you Jews. Doesn't that bother you? Don't you have questions on your God? Why he's allowing us to do these things to you? So Rav Tzvi Hirsch said, when I was a little boy in Cheder, the Rebbe taught us, don't ask questions on God. Why not? Because he may invite you upstairs to give you the answer. Now, if you don't want to be invited up so fast, so if you don't want to be invited upstairs so fast to hear the answer, so don't ask the question. Since then, I don't ask any questions, because I don't want to be invited upstairs so fast. The commandant, he thought it was, that's commandant had a good laugh. He let him go. And this is true, because Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, it says by Moshe Rabbeinu, Kadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, Hine makom iti. There's a place by me. When Moshe Rabbeinu, Kadosh Baruch Hu was begaling him the Yud Gimel Midos, put him in the Tzur, in the Nikras Asur, he put him in the cave, and he wanted to know. Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to know Tzadik V'Ralo, Rosh V'Tovlo. He had kashas. Moshe Rabbeinu had kashas on the Kodesh Baruch Hu. We all do. Iyuv does. These philosophers and Rabban, since the beginning of time, we've had kashas on the Kodesh Baruch Hu. The biggest kashas are Tzadik v'Raloi, Rosh v'Tovlo. What did the Kodesh Baruch Hu tell him? Hinei makam iti. There's a place upstairs by me, there are no questions. If you come up here and you look down, you'll see the whole field, and then you'll realize there are no questions. You don't want to go up there so fast? Don't ask such questions down here. When we see tragedies happening, we have questions. All of us have questions. In our lifetimes, things happen. Why did it happen? We have questions. So my Rosh Hashiva Zatzal always used to quote this Chafetz Chaim. The mashal of the Chafetz Chaim, I already told it over to you. I'll tell it over to you another 100 times. There was a simple country farmer. He had to go to the big city. He had some business there. And came Shabbos morning, so he was shacharis, so he decided he was going to visit the big shul. They had a big shul, you know. They didn't, in his place, they had a little tiny stiebel where he lived, but in the city they had a big shul. Now, services in you know, or they're basically the same. Like, you know, the shacharis is basically the same. You know, Pesukei Zimra, shacharis, Kriyas Torah, and Musaf. You know. But it was very, very elegant, you know, with chazonis and very, 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 very wonderful davening. One thing picked his interest, caught his eye. During Kriyas Torah, when the Gabbai called out the 7 aliyahs, Yama from east, west, north, south, Arba Kanfos Oris, he was picking people out for the 7 aliyahs. All sorts of different corners of the shul. It sounds very unorganized. This is not an organized way of doing things. You got to do things in an orderly fashion. So after davening is over, this country bumpkin goes over to Gabbai. My dear sir, I truly enjoy davening here, but tell me, why did you give out aliyahs to people from all over the shul? One week you picked the first row, the second week you picked the second row, third week you picked the third row. You have so many orderly rows here with people in their places, and then everybody will get an aliyah in an orderly fashion. Why'd you give aliyahs in such a helter-skelter fashion? Gabbai looks at him, smiles. You country bumpkin. You come here 1 week and you want to understand everything? If you would have been here a few weeks ago, you'd understand. 3 weeks ago, the guy in the first bench had a yard site, so I had to give him his aliyah then. Last week, the son of the fellow behind him had a bar mitzvah, so he had to get an aliyah. And now this week, there's a man in the third row. He's getting married this coming week, so he's got to get an aliyah now. And there's another guy.
Paid $100.
Yeah. And then there's another guy who was sick for 3 weeks, and he would have missed his aliyah entirely if I followed your scheme. So therefore, if I would follow your scheme, nobody would get an aliyah when he wants it. I have to rack my brains out to figure out how to parcel out all the aliyahs so that everybody is happy when they need it. Otherwise, they're going to be unhappy.
And they still complain.
So the Chafetz Chaim says, you come into this world. You come into this world for 70 years. How long is 70 years? 80 years? 90 years? How long? What'd you see? Do you understand the God's plan from the beginning of time, from the beginning of creation, until the Mashiach and Techiyas HaMesim? There's a plan, there's a great master plan that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has. Bad things happen. Why do bad things happen? Lo machshavoisai machshavoisechem. We say on a tainus. We're going to have a tainus on Friday, so we're going to have in.
Tainus this Friday?
Yeah.
What about early Shabbos, Rabbi? If I do early Shabbos,
no.
I gotta do Kiddush and Plug Mincha every single day.
You asking Shabbos?
It's winter. What early Shabbos?
Yeah, when
When do you want to get Shabbos?
we ate it.
Lo machshavoisai machshavoisechem, lo darchechem dorachai nu'um Hashem. My thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways. Yaakov was grieving over Yosef, and the light of Mashiach was being arranged in Shemayim. We have a Mashiach ben Yosef, and we have Mashiach ben David, and the whole Maisa with Yehuda and Tamar, and everything was being arranged. She'evit Sora could be the birth of a Yeshua. Duvna Magid gives one of his famous mashalim. You walk into a tailor shop, and you see you see an emissary from the king, and he's picking out gorgeous, fabric. A mamish fabric. It's the best fabric, best material available, and he's picking it out, and he says, "Make a suit for the king." So then you watch the tailor, and he takes the fabric, and he starts cutting it up into little pieces. What are you doing? You just ruined the fabric. It was gorgeous fabric. Now you're cutting it up into this shape and that shape. What does the tailor tell you? Have patience, you fool. I'm tailoring a suit for the king. Now, if you know a tailor, he's got to make all sorts of different shapes and then sew it together. And in the end, it's a beautiful suit. You have to cut it up first. Cutting it up is the way to make a beautiful suit. So too by us. When a Kodesh Baruch Hu cuts things up, we have a psak halacha in Shulchan Aruch, Chayav Adam levorach ala ra kashem shemavorach ala toiv. We have to realize Kodesh Baruch Hu is cutting things up for the best possible reason. Now it says Chayav, you're Chayav to make a bracha on the ra, things that are bad, just like you make a bracha on the tov. What? So Gemara Yasakasha, the same bracha? No. We can't make the same bracha. We make a bracha shatova meitiv on good things, and make a bracha, dayana emes on bad things. It's not the same bracha. So what does it mean? Chayav adam levorach ala ra kashem shemavorach ala tov. When he's making a dayana emes, he should realize it should be done with the same simcha, because ultimately, for some reason which is hidden from him, this is the best thing that could happen. This is the famous Reb Zusha. I told you over this many times. Rabbi Elimelech, he was Milezhinsk, one of the greatest Hasidic Rebbes. So a fellow came to him, says, "How do I make a bracha on the bad things, just like I make a bracha on tov? It's hurting. I can't. How can I make such a bracha?" So Rabbi Elimelech says, "Look, I can't answer your question. I'm not big enough for that. Go to my brother Zusha, and he'll give you the answer." So he goes hunting for Zusha, and he finds him living in a shack, and it was a rickety shack, and the roof was leaking, and the furniture was rickety, and he had no money, and there was no food, and he was living in dire poverty. And this is the man, he's suffering. If I was living like that, I'd suffer. So, okay, but the Rebbe said I have to ask him. So he went. He says, "Yes, can I help you?" He says, "I hope. I'm not sure, but Rabbi Elimelech said I can ask you my question." So, what's your question? It says you should make a bracha chayav adam levorach ala ra, same way you make on the tov. How are you supposed to do that? So Reb Zusha says, "I don't know why my brother sent you to me, because I also don't know the answer to that. Nothing bad ever happened to me." That was Reb Zusha. Nothing bad ever happened to him. He always looked for the good thing. He looked for the good thing. He saw only the good. Only the good. You know, insurance companies, so they'll insure you for anything except, right? You can get insured for all sorts of circumstances, unforeseen circumstances, but they have one clause in there. If it's an act of God, we don't insure you, right? If it's an act of God, there are certain things they have designated. Well, this is an act of God. This is out of our realm, right? And you know, God is to blame for that. God is to blame for that. So don't. We can't insure you for things which God is to blame for. Kol di'ovid rachmana l'tav ovid. There's no such thing. An act of God which God is of course he's to blame. He's not to blame for anything. Everything that the Kadosh Baruch Hu, that the merciful one, Kol di'ovid rachmana. Rachmana is a lashon of the merciful one. Is for the good. If a bomber gets on a number 2 bus, a number 3 bus, right, years ago, and blows himself up and takes 50 people with him or 200 people with him, or there's a tragedy on Simchas Torah and 1,200 people, it's Hashem's will. Obviously, for some reason, we don't know why. If a guy gets on a bus, many things could happen. How many times we've heard stories? A guy got on a bus, with strapped, with thing, and either went off prematurely, so he got blown up before he got on the bus, because he triggered it by mistake, or he had a short circuit, nothing happened, and then he went off and tried to fix it and got blown up, at the bus stop, with nobody on the bus. Could be somebody could have spotted him and pushed him off the bus. Many things could have happened. And if a Kodesh Baruch Hu didn't stop it, that means this was a Kodesh Baruch Hu's will, that this should happen. Now, these monsters, the Hamas monsters, or the suicide bombers, all the Rishoyim that are committing such acts, atrocities and barbaric actions, they're going to get Gehenna. Maybe even a worse Gehenna than the Nazis. We can't judge which is a worse atrocity, putting people in gas chambers or beheading babies. I mean, this is beyond us. It's going to get Gehenna. But we have to realize this is the Ribono Shel Olam's will, whatever happened. And if the Ribono Shel Olam didn't prevent it from happening, means he wanted it to happen. That's for the good. There's so many terrible things in the world. So we have to, Rav Shaga Feivel Mendelovich, he was one of the first Menayilim of Torah V'das in New York. He's a great Talmid Chacham. He could have been a gadol. He called himself Mr. Mendelovich. He didn't want to call himself Rabbi, Rav. He was Mr. Mendelovich, Shaga Feivel Mendelovich. We have a tefillas Chana. Chana, after she had Shmuel Navi, she gave birth to Shmuel Navi, and then she davened. And we have a line from her tefillah in Ein Kelokenu. We say in Kaveh al Hashem, Ein Kodesh Kashem ki Ein Biltecha ve'Ein Tzur Kelokenu. There's no tzur like the Eibishter, like our God. The word tzur literally means rock. Also, it's true. He's a rock, solid. He's solid. Solid doesn't budge. Tzur of Amunah. But there's another reason. Why do you use the lashon of tzur? So the Chazal tell us, don't read tzur, read sayer. He's an artist. There's no artist like Hashem. A regular artist can build a picture, but you build a picture, it's dead. There's no life to a picture. There's no life to a picture, in spite of the fact that I have experts here who do AI, and are making videos that look realistic, but there's no life to it. It's just digital images on a computer screen. There's no life there. Kadosh Baruch Hu can build a person and put life into the person, into the behemoths, into the whole world. The whole universe has got life to it. So he's a tzayir. There's no tzayir like a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Let's take this mashal one step further.
The Israel independence document.
I'm sorry?
Sur Israel was the beginning of the.
Let's not get into it. That was that was.
Was there Kavanah Sior? Yeah.
No, that was not their kavana. I won't. A different time. A different time. Take a kindergarten child. You go to Gan Yeladim, right? Take a 6-year-old child, and you say, "Bubala Yankala, here. You see that man standing over there? I want you to draw here. Here's a paper with a pencil or pen or crayons. Draw me a picture of that man over there." So what does he do? So what does a kindergarten kid, a Gan Yeladim kindergarten kid do? He draws a circle. That's the head. Then a line, that's the body. 2 lines going out the side, those are the arms. 2 lines going down, those are the legs. 2 dots, those are the eyes. Then between them another dot, that's the nose. And then a half a circle, that's the mouth. And you look at it. And you look at it, he drew a picture of a man. He drew a picture of a person, right? Now, imagine you go in, you see Rembrandt. You go to Rembrandt and say, "Mr. Rembrandt, can you draw me a picture of that man over there?" So he goes over, he takes out a big canvas, a very expensive, fine canvas, piece of canvas, and he takes some red paint and he smears some red paint on it. And then he takes some black paint and he makes a splotch over here. So, "Mr. Rembrandt, I didn't ask you to you just ruined the canvas. A smear here and a blotch over there. I asked you to draw me a picture of a man. Here, let me give you another canvas and you'll start all over again. Draw the circle with the line. What are you doing?" Rembrandt says, "Come on. Seriously. This painting is going to take me 6 months. I want you to sit down and keep your mouth shut. At the end of 6 months, when you see the painting, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer you." What are you going to see at the end of 6 months? You're going to see that the red paint was for contrast, and the black paint was for a shadow. Everything fits nicely into the picture. That's what Rav Shraga Feivel said. Ribono Shel Olam is in the middle of building a massive picture. It's a portrait from the beginning of time until Techiyas HaMesim, to the end of time. We're in the middle of that painting. We saw red blotches, we saw Holocaust with pogroms, we saw blood, we saw terrible tragedies, people dying on Simchas Torah, and we don't understand it. It looks like a Kodesh Baruch Hu the Ribono Shel Olam is destroying the picture. When finally we get to the end, we'll look back and we'll understand everything. A few days before he was murdered by the Nazis, Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, this is reported by people who were there, they escaped somehow. And people, they asked him, why is this terrible thing happening to us? And he gave his famous mashal, Rabbi Chanan Wasserman Zatzal, Shem Yokum Domo. A fellow goes to a farmer, he doesn't know anything about agriculture, he meets a farmer, and he sees him carrying, it looks like breakfast cereal. He's carrying some cereal, some grains or something in his hands. He says, it's not, obviously he doesn't have a bowl or whatever. He really should have a bowl with milk and sugar, but he's carrying it in his hands. He must be going for breakfast. He's walking, goes to the field, says, "What do you do?" Right? And he takes the breakfast cereal, and So you go over to the farm, you say, where I come from, we don't carry cereal in our hands, we carry it in a bowl. So he smiles, just be patient. He goes over to the middle of the field, and he sees some mud, and he throws the cereal, spreads it out into the mud. You just ruined beautiful breakfast cereal. What'd you do that for? Just be patient. Come back in 3 months, and then we'll see. So you come back in 3 months, and where the seeds, the grains of wheat had fallen, now the whole field is full of stalks of wheat. Wow! You have 100 times more than you started with. Now we can really have a breakfast. So you see him cutting down the stalks of wheat and and taking off the chaff, and he's got the wheat berries. Okay, now breakfast is ready. Let's get our bowls out and our sugar and milk. And then he goes and he starts grinding up the wheat. What are you doing? You can't eat dust. You're turning it into dust? Just be patient. You can't eat dust. Turns it into dust. Then he takes the dust and he puts water in it and he makes a paste. This is goo. This is you can't eat this stuff. This is goo. Just be patient. And then he takes this goo and he puts it into the oven. Just be patient. And after 10 minutes, the beautiful smell of freshly baked bread comes out. And then, okay, now we can sit down and have our breakfast. Now we're ready to eat. That's what Rabbi Chanan said. That's what Rabbi Chanan said. Kadosh Baruch Hu is taking his people and grinding them up, throwing them into the mud, and grinding them up into dust, and throwing them into the oven, nebuch. But the end is going to come out a beautiful feast when we get to Tchiyas HaMesim. Until you don't see the whole process, you don't understand anything. When you get to Shemayim, finally when we get to Shemayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to show us. Can you imagine? You think it's going to take weeks? It's going to take months until the HaKadosh Baruch Hu explains all my whole life and everything that happened in my whole life, in the whole life of Klal Yisrael, all the tragedies of Klal Yisrael. It's going to take him months and months and months to explain to us what happened? No. We're going to get to Shemayim. We're going to get upstairs, and like the Achi Yosef, he's going to say 2 words: Ani Yosef. And with those 2 words, all of a sudden the brothers understood everything. Understood everything. We get to Shemayim, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to say, Ani Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud Kei Vav Kei, the shame of Rachamim, shame of mercy. And then we'll see everything from the beginning of time to the end of time, and how it all fits into a beautiful picture and of Tchiyas HaMesim and Yibiyas Mashiach.
Amen.